lot of bullying. People didn't like me. I felt like people tolerated me. And so I had very low self-esteem growing up because I was always trying to fit in. And so when I got older and started getting into the dating, when a gentleman acts like he likes you, like you're gravitating to, because you want to feel like you're worthy. You're worthy of somebody loving you, like somebody likes you. And so be careful of your words. Like Yolanda, I picked. God didn't pick my first husband. I didn't know him. I saw him driving down the street in his van. And I said, I said, that's going to be my husband one day. Had never met him. And then we were having a party at my house. And I called my god brother and asked him to find me a DJ. And guess who the DJ was? It was a guy I saw driving down the street in that van that I said was going to be my husband one day. So my last year of high school, I met him and we started dating. Like at that party, when we started talking and everything, we started dating that night. I got married with my first child. I got pregnant with my first child that year. And 6 years later, we got married. My husband, I thought we were living the life, like we were going everywhere together doing things, and then he started hanging out with this other woman because he was a DJ and he was a production person with video. And he got emotionally attached to her. I was ignoring signs because I'm like, this is this personality. He would call her, hey sweetie, how you doing? You know, that kind of thing on the phone. And the day that he asked me for a divorce, that's the day that I lost it. Because I didn't see it coming. I saw it, but I was ignoring the signs. And that day, I literally, because my husband wanted me, I went into this marriage without an identity of my own. Still struggling. Because he wanted me, this made me feel special. And so, because I didn't have an identity going into marriage, when he asked me for divorce, I was back at that place again. And that day, literally, I sat on my bed. I had a bottle of Vicodin on my nightstand. I put that bottle of Vicodin, I poured it in my hand. And I sat there, and I'm listening to the enemy speak in my ear. Go ahead, take him. He's going to be sorry when you're gone. He's going to wish he had never said that to you. He's going to wish he had never done this to you. Go ahead, take him. You'll show him. And then God's voice stepped in. I'm a minister of the gospel at this point. And God's voice steps in and he says, what are you doing? You're the one that's always telling people that there's nothing in this world bad enough for you to take your own life. Yet you sit here with this bottle of pills in your hand. What are you doing? You need to make a decision. Life is going to go on whether you're in it or not. You need to make a decision. And so, with tears in my eyes, the ugly cry with the snot going and everything, I took those pills and I put them back in the bottle. And I put them back on the nightstand. And then I said, you know what, I may be tempted again. And so I flushed them. But at that point, I was like, I didn't feel like I knew God the way that I thought I should know God, but I knew him well enough to hear his voice and to recognize his voice. And that is why I'm still here today. I went through a lot in that transition from going through the divorce, going through all the separation process, all the court stuff. It was 4 years before the divorce was final. During that time, again, as a minister of the gospel, my husband didn't want me, so nobody else is going to want me either. I became very promiscuous. I was out there sleeping with this man, sleeping with that man, sleeping with this, trying to find somebody to show me that I was lovable, showing me that I was desirable as a woman, because I did not know that I did not love myself. And so I'm abusing myself. And every time going back home, thinking God is mad at me, falling on my face, going to the altar every Sunday, asking for prayer. And my pastor said one day, he said, look, I don't know what it is you're looking for, but you need to pray. But I couldn't share that with anybody because the enemy kept holding that thing over my head. You can't tell anybody because they're going to judge you. They're going to sit you down. And so I kept it in. I wouldn't tell anybody. But I'm living it with all this fear, saying that somebody's going to find out one day. Somebody's going to find out one day. And we're at church and we're praying in tongues. And all of a sudden I noticed everybody else's voice was silent. And my voice was still carrying, praying in tongues, praying in the spirit. And after everything broke and the silence came, my pastor interpreted. and God was giving me a word for myself. He said, if you don't stop it, it will be revealed. If you don't stop, it will be revealed. And I struggled to stop. But God had told me before I slept with any of those men, as I was praying for my husband, praying for another husband, God had told me, he said, anybody that you sleep with is not your husband. He was trying to protect me, and I missed it. He knew that I was going to do what I did before it ever happened, and I missed it. And thinking that God is mad at me. He was not mad at me. He loved me. He loved me enough to warn me ahead of time. And so when God sent my husband, he had been chasing me for a year. And I ignored him because it didn't come in the package that I was looking for. I was praying for tall, dark, and handsome. And I had found the one that I wanted, but I knew when I crossed that line and I slept with him that he was not the one. So we dated off and on for 2 years. And then I finally broke it off. And when God started highlighting who it was that he sent for me, I said, Lord, I said, when you send him, let him be the one to set the boundary, because I'm tired of setting the boundary and crossing it. And when he sent him, he had already sent him, and like I told you, this man had been chasing me for a year, but he didn't come in the package that I was looking for. And when I finally gave him a chance, I said, Lord, let him set the boundaries. When he called me for the first time, and we had a first conversation, we spoke for 4 hours. And then he hung up, he called back, he said, oh yeah, he said, we forgot something. He said, we need to set some boundaries. And I said, okay. I said, what you got? He said, the first thing is no sex outside of marriage. I said, okay. He said, you got anything else you want to add to that? I said, nope, that's it. And so I knew at that point that he was my husband. But we always make this joke. I said, I was looking for tall, dark, and handsome, and God sent me the great white knight. Because my husband's a white dog. But in that brokenness, like going through all that by myself, not being able to share what I was going through because I was afraid, going through trying to figure out who I was, trying to love myself again, that was my breaking point. And that was the thing that God used to get me to the place where I was able to say, okay, I can love myself again. Getting in the Word again, praying for myself again, getting in God's presence. He had me in this place of solitude. And so when you're going into something, think about this. Think about where you are, and do you love yourself? Do you know yourself enough? Don't go into relationships until you know who you are. Because you cannot find your identity in that person, in that role, whatever that is. You have to find your identity in him. And through that journey is where he helped me to find my true identity in him.